Good morning from the Second Age of Reason. We are here to discuss something of recent events. The Inauguration. This is when the President is sworn in the January following an election. And so it goes. Why I also have chosen to call my channel sometimes the Second Age of Reason. And we'll just go through those items of interest, because it seems as though there was coincidence, and it seems as though there was some cognitive dissonance, and we're going to go over those items now. And first, there was the inauguration, and I'm thinking of terms of it in relation to auguration, which comes from the word augur. And as the great Etruscan augur knows, auguration is foretelling the future, and traditionally, from Roman times, it has been by means of observing birds, their behaviors, their patterns, their songs, their nests, different things about birds, and it provided them with information of how to predict the future. Well, maybe it's not that way exactly now, but we have an inauguration, which is interesting, because like consistency is to inconsistency, and competence is to incompetence, inauguration the same. So it tells me that auguration would be foretelling the future, inauguration would be foretelling the uncertainty, or not foretelling the future, or making the future confused. And that's kind of what we have, because there seems to be a cognitive dissonance here. And let's bring out the first age of reason aspects of it. Would be, here's the president, he won the election. Grand. He takes the oath of office. That is a tradition. And he takes the oath of office with his hand on the Bible. That's a tradition. And this year it was 2 Bibles. Does that mean he's twice as religious? I don't know. And the coincidence is, one of the Bibles was Abraham Lincoln's Bible. And the other Bible was Dr. Martin Luther King's Bible. And this is interesting. Also, that when the oath of office was given, the president was facing the Lincoln Memorial, where President Lincoln is buried. And also where the Reverend Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech 50 years ago this August. So, I like to wonder about that a little bit. Dr. Cornell West has a little bit of difference of opinion about how that should be. I actually agree with Dr. Cornell West on that one. And I'm going to reiterate some of his things, but we're going to stay on the first age of reason for a moment. So it all looks grand that here the president, who is African American, is taking the oath of office on Abraham Lincoln's Bible and Martin Luther King's Bible, in a special position on a special day in a special year. That is going to mark history. So let us see, what does this do in the second age of reason? This is where we look at things to the new level, a deeper level. President Lincoln freed the slaves. He freed the slaves during the Civil War. Did he free the slaves because of a deep feeling that slavery was wrong and then it was to be abolished, as the abolitionists professed? Or did he free the slaves for another reason? And I think people have found out that it was the other reason. The other reason being was in a civil war. And by emancipating the slaves, it was actually an economic sanction against the South, cutting off a major supply of their labor. So it may have been at first just a symbolic gesture, but it held till today. And slavery is still wrong. It should still be wrong today. But yet, we have established a great prison industrial complex, privatized for-profit prisons that use prisoners as slave labor. So slave labor is still existing today, but because it's in the prison system, it has the stamp of justice upon it. And the prisoners, as you might imagine, are by far mostly of African American descent. So it seems to me that there's some cognitive dissonance in the world today, little hypocrisies that maybe are not so little. That was some of the things that the Reverend Martin Luther King was against. Things like the Jim Crow laws that held that all men are created equal separately, and controlling the vote, and controlling their rights, controlling where they could eat or what they could do, and worried about things like the lynch-ins and police brutality. And his I Have a Dream speech, he did mention police brutality to quite an extent. And it's a pity that the Occupy movement reached its loudest apex in 2012, because 2013, or during the elections, would have been much more propitious of an event. Because where he's starting to talk about the rights of your Bill of Rights as being a promissory note and that they're defaulting on it, he's talking economics. And he's talking police brutality. And if you observe the Occupy movement in any detail, you'll see that it is pure police brutality. Now, the police are an extension of the executive branch. So that buck stops at the president in the executive branch. Little hypocrisies. They're not so little, are they? So I think I have to agree with Dr. West that here's a president who has more wars than any other president, longer lasting wars than any other president, has violated the Constitution more than any other president, being sworn in as president. And now he's going to be working at curtailing more of your constitutional rights, but he takes his oath to defend the Constitution. Little hypocrisies. They're not so little anymore. So I just thought you might want to know about that. And he takes it from a Supreme Court judge. And with the Supreme Court siding with the executive branch and Wall Street, the whole puppet show has lost credibility. The whole puppet show is a kabuki of hypocrisy. And I just thought I would mention that, and it was sad that then he would try to co-opt the Bible of the Reverend King as if he is some great peacemaker. He's got the Peace Prize to prove it. And a military budget that has never been equaled in the history of the planet ever. So That's the end of my talk about the inauguration. Read or listen to the video link below of Dr. Cornell West. He says things much more eloquently than I do. So, until later, this is the second age of reason. Be seeing you.